Greetings, booktubers. Welcome back to Grammaticus Books. And today on Grammaticus Books, we're going to ask and answer the question, is it worth paying the cover charge to the bouncer at the front door of the Draco Tavern to step inside, sidle up to the bar, get to the owner, Rick Schumann, and order a whiskey from Rick Schumann at the Draco Tavern? And I won't bury the lead. I'll get right to the point. I'll answer that question right up front. Yes, it is. This is a delightful book here by Larry Niven that collects 27 stories, 27 short stories, all set in the Draco Tavern that were written by Larry Niven between the years 1977 and 2006 when this book was published. This is an excellent book. Now, Larry Niven is better known for his Ringworld series. He wrote Ringworld back in 1970. This is the first hardcover edition from 1977, a book club edition. And Ringworld was a seminal book in science fiction history. It is the book that established the entire subgenre of SF, of BDOs, big dumb objects, or as I prefer to refer to them as, celestial-sized megastructures. And Ringworld was this huge structure that enclosed and orbited and encircled a sun that was about 100 million times the size of Earth, and had all of these characters that he populated into it. And there were three follow-on books here to Ringworld. You had the Ringworld Engineers, the Ringworld Throne, and Ringworld's Children. And frankly, I think the size and scope of the Ringworld environment and the number of characters that he was trying to write about, it got away from Larry Niven in his Ringworld series. He wasn't a good enough writer. He's a good writer, but you needed to be just a masterful writer in order to contain that entire environment, that massive environment with all the people that he populated into it. And I think that was some of the flaws in his Ringworld series. So I was very curious to see how he would do with a very localized environment, one bar in Siberia in the decade of the 2030s with a limited number of people doing these very focused short stories for these 27 short stories that are contained within here. And it's the perfect setting for Larry Niven. He's an idea guy. He's not the world's most masterful SF writer in terms of the quality of his prose and his ability to contain his stories with his prose. But this is the perfect environment for him to write in, to get his ideas out as an idea guy and just get straight to the point and hit these wonderful and very entertaining short stories here contained within the Draco Tavern. Now, the story of the Draco Tavern is that the year is the 2030. It's the decade of the 2030s when these stories take place. And the Earth has been visited by a galactic going race called the Chirpsithra. Think 11-foot tall, humanoid-shaped beings that are basically lobsters that weigh 120 pounds. And the Chirpsithra claim to rule the galaxy, which they may or may not do. And when they say the galaxy, they mean all the planets that are worth owning, they own. And those are planets that circle red dwarf stars, so they have no interest in the Earth. But they come in their mile-sized ships, and then they take their ships, and they go down in their little captain's rigs, their captain's gigs, full of aliens who are traveling with them. And they go to this one spot in Siberia, where Rick Schumann, our protagonist, has opened up the Draco Tavern in order to serve all these alien beings and act as an interacting point, as a melting pot for the people of Earth and all these aliens that want to go out and visit the Earth and interact with and talk to humans in his bar. So it's sort of like Mos Eisley's spaceport, but set on Earth in the 2030s in Siberia. Now, the main character, Rick Schumann, that name I think was picked very carefully, very selectively by Larry Niven. The last name Schumann, if you look at it closely, actually contains the word human. I don't think that that's an accident. And then the first name, Rick, he's the proprietor of this bar. His name is Rick, which reminds me quite a bit of another proprietor of another bar set on Earth where the owner was named Rick, where you had people from all across all different locales coming together in order to make their fortunes or move on to a different locale. What was the name of that? Casablanca. So this is basically Rick from Casablanca running the Americana out of Casablanca, but it's Mos Eisley spaceport up in Siberia with all these aliens coming in. And it's wonderful. The stories in here are very good. They're very well written. They're nice and tight. It's the perfect environment, again, for Larry Niven to bring out all these ideas as an idea guy and then get straight to the point and write about them. You've got stories about God, life, the after death, about lawyers, about what an AI supercomputer will do once it has gathered all the information that there is to gather. What does an AI supercomputer do once it gets to that point in its AI life? You've got a story called Limits, where Rick is setting up these dampening fields in order to contain the conversations between the different tables in his bar so that it's not just a cacophony like the Tower of Babel going on. And as he's working on the electronics of the system, he accidentally taps into a pair of aliens who are talking about why they didn't give immortality, the gift of immortality, to the human race. And it's because they like their poetry so much. And they're afraid that if they give them immortality and they aren't mortal and don't die, that they won't write as good poetry. And he's desperately trying to find which bar this conversation is coming from so he can track down these aliens on the secret of immortality. And he can't figure out his system as he's going around the bar trying to figure out who the aliens are. And it's just delightful. The stories in here are wonderful. They're fantastic. In fact, these stories are so good that Larry Niven in 1984, one of the stories in here is actually a play that he wrote, a little skit that he wrote for WorldCon out in LA, or also known as LACon 2 in 1984. And there's a video I found on YouTube of that play being enacted out there at that science fiction convention in 1984 out in Los Angeles. And I'll link it in the description below. It's like 2 minutes long. And it's charming to see what people would do at a sci-fi convention back in the year 1984. In addition to that, there was a song written about the Draco Tavern that was published. It was performed by Larry Warner, and I have a YouTube link to it as well. And it is fantastic. It's written in the tradition of like an Irish ballad. If you were to go into a bar in Ireland, and there would be a bard there with his guitar singing the song about the heroic heroes of old Ireland, and that's the tone of it, but it's with the Draco Tavern, and I'll link it down below. That's a wonderful song as well. So there's a lot of people that this book resonated with in order to create these adaptations, and it is an excellent book. This is a library copy that I picked up. That's how I usually do things. I'll get a library copy, and if I like it enough, I'll go out and buy a copy. I am definitely buying a copy of the Draco Tavern because it is worth the cover charge to come in. Now, I'm going to say one thing about this book here. It's a bit of a rant warning. It's got nothing to do with the book itself. It has to do with the cover of this book and the other major cover, which I'll put up over here, that this book was published with. And the artwork on this book, this is 2006, where you no longer have just the art that's full of character. This is far superior in terms of how polished it is, how professional it is, and it is far less interesting than this cover right here. It's just dull, gray, monochromatic. There's nothing on this cover that would attract me to this book and get me to buy it, let alone this cover over here that is even worse. I mean, the quality of the covers that they're putting onto science fiction books these days in the 2000s, I don't understand it. Why are they doing these crappy covers? Why are they not doing Conan of Samaria, getting Frank Frazetta or whatever, or somebody else who can at least paint a little bit to put an attractive cover on your book in order to sell it? Why on earth would you put out something so dull and uninteresting as this? You're painting a cover, for God's sake, of a tavern full of alien beings, and this is what you come up with? Why would you not? What artist in his right mind would not just paint a tableau, a picture of this bar filled with all these alien beings, with all these luminescent lights going on inside of it, lighting it up with alien beings from around the world, like a modern, updated Mos Eisley spaceport? That would be a fantastic cover that would sell this book immensely better than this boring, monochromatic CRAP. All right, rant over. That's it. But the Draco Tavern, it's a fantastic story. I highly recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed it from front to back. You've got 27 stories published between 1977 and 2006. It's not every story of the Draco Tavern, but it's most of the main ones. And they do vary in quality, but by far and away, most of these stories range from very good to excellent. They're quick to the point. It's the perfect environment for Larry Niven. And I do highly recommend paying that cover charge, sidling up to the bar and ordering a whiskey from Rick Schumann. And with that, I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.